Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Go ahead and update our way too early top 25 in college hoops, okay? We did it probably about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. A lot has changed. First of all, the portal is now closed. Second of all, on top of it, NBA draft deadline has passed. So if you want to even declare for the draft, test for the draft, you had to have your name in last week. And so, yes, there are some players that are going to be potential difference makers that are testing. But the number is actually very small. I think you guys all saw the stat, but fewest number of underclassmen to declare since like 2013 or something like that. I can't remember, but it was like 100 players declared. And there are some that could make a difference on next year in college hoops. Otega Oweh at Kentucky, Carter Knox at Arkansas. There's a few, and there's a few guys that are still in the portal that if they decide to come back could make a difference. But these rosters are largely set, so let's go ahead. Let's update the top 25. And I'll tell you this, number one, I think is going to come as a shock to a lot of you, including the fan base's number one. I'm just going to be real. I think Purdue should be number one going into next year. First of all, shout out Purdue fans. They think Torres hates him. I got him number one right now going into next season, and it's pretty straightforward as to why I would do that. Truth of the matter is they have probably the best guard coming back in all of college basketball. Braden Smith, 15 points a game, nearly 8 assists per game. Oh, by the way, Trey Ren Kaufman was phenomenal. 21 points, about 7 boards per game this past season. And it's funny, listen, we talk so much, and I include myself on this show. We talk portal, we talk NIL, we talk bags, we talk recruiting. But the number one key to success is have a really good team and bring back a lot of the talent from that team. This past year, Florida, Will Richard, Walter Clayton, some of the big guys. Auburn returned basically their whole team. Alabama returned big chunks of their team. You go on and on down the list. Outside of Duke, who literally had the best player in college basketball, everybody else, it was largely about retention. So Purdue brings back an All-American point guard, an All-American forward. Also thought they really only brought in a player or two from the portal, but Oscar Clough, the backup center, I think will be very good for them. Who else? They brought in the European Israeli point guard, Omer Mayer, who I think a lot of people think is a potential NBA player down the road. And it is worth noting, you thought you were done with 7'4" guys at Purdue. They had a former fringe 4-star, 4-star, 5-star Daniel Jacobson, who was hurt this past year, did not play. He is expected to be back. I have Purdue at number one in the country. Number two, this is another one. By the way, one more thing about Purdue, because I saw a buddy of mine in the media. I won't name him. He probably wouldn't care, but he said, oh, Torres, they're not athletic enough. It's like, well, first of all, they made a national championship game 2 years ago. They were the second best team in the country. Secondly, remember, if you're saying Purdue's not athletic enough, they took Houston down to literally the final play of the game. Easily could have won that game. Houston doesn't even go to a Final Four. So I just bring it up because I think Purdue is certainly good enough. Number two, and by the way, we'll probably deep dive on the top 10 and then quickly go 11 to 25 because there's only so many hours in the day, people. Number two, maybe another little bit of a surprise in the Big Ten as well. It is the Michigan Wolverines, okay? And obviously, look, part of the Michigan thing here is Yaxel Lendenberg, the transfer from UAB. My assumption under this circumstance is that he is, in fact, coming back. If he does not come back, Michigan is not a top 10 team. But it's worth noting, first of all, I think they did pretty well in the portal in the backcourt. Elliot Cadeau comes from North Carolina. I know people are going to say, oh, he stunk it. Listen, kid averaged 11 points and 6 assists per game at North Carolina. He is going to be on a much more talented team this year. They bring back shooting with Roddy Gale, shooting with Amari Burnett, and then it's about the big guys down low. Yaxel, as I've said several times, I believe is the best player that entered the portal all offseason. Averaged 18, 9, 4, 5 assists, 6'8", 6'9" forward. He kind of reminds me of Obi Toppin. And you put him in this system, he is going to be, in my opinion, a National Player of the Year candidate. They also added Morez Johnson Jr. from Illinois. They added Adai Mora from UCLA. And so, listen, again, if this team does not have Yaxel Lendenberg, we will reevaluate. But I'm here to tell you, if Yaxel Lendenberg comes back, like I said, I believe he is an All-American National Player of the Year type candidate in that system. So for now, I have Michigan at number 2. By the way, Lendenberg did take a visit to Michigan over the last couple days, so you feel pretty good as he enters the draft process that there is a relationship there. The question is, does he come back? He's kind of a late first-round pick at this point. I think it would actually help his draft stock, even though he's a little bit of an older prospect to come back, but I have Michigan at number 2. Number 3, you talk about a big riser in this way too early top 25. I think the last time we talked about him, I had him at like 15. Then they basically added every single person in the portal ever. I'm talking about Big Rick Energy. I'm talking about the St. John's Red Storm. Okay, listen, bottom line with St. John's, when I look at them, like I said, you go back to like late March, early April. They lose R.J. Lewis. Okay, they add Bryce Hopkins. You feel pretty good. He averaged 17 a game at Providence in the limited time that he played this past year. They add Josan Sanan, transfer from Arizona State, former 5-star. But you sit there and say, do they have enough outside of those guys? Well, one, Zuby Ejiofor is officially coming back. All Big East second-team player. I think he could be like the preseason Big East player of the year in that conference. But then, like I said, just went and basically added every single person available in the portal, okay? Ian Jackson is in. He will play point guard. That's my one little concern about St. John's. Is Ian Jackson actually a point guard? Osiah Sellers, who had a good season at Stanford this past year, is in on the wing. Dylan Mitchell, former McDonald's All-American, is in on the wing. And then also Dylan Darling, a guy that I think is probably going to be the backup point guard that can play point guard minutes if need be. They have all been added since we did our last update about 2.5 weeks ago, okay? And so I just bring it up. By the way, I got a big itch on my nose here, so forgive me, St. John's fans. I'm sorry. America, I'm sorry. Got a scratch on my head as well. Anyway, St. John's. I'm just here to say, listen, I know the Ian Jackson point guard stuff is interesting. It's a little bit weird. It's different. I trust Rick Pitino, but what I come back to when I look at this roster, this team has way more scoring than they did at this time last year. They should be just as good defensively. I have St. John's at number 3. Number 4, let's stay in the Big East. You knew Dan Hurley wasn't going to take a backseat to anybody. I do have UConn at number 4. They're like Purdue. They're like a few teams in that this team was not going to be defined by going out and adding 1 million players in the portal. And by the way, that's not a criticism. Kentucky did it. They're going to be awesome. St. John's did it. They're going to be awesome. Michigan did it. They're going to be awesome. You can add a bunch of players and be really good. But UConn's season was going to be defined by who do they bring back off of a good but not great team this past season. Well, bring back Solo Ball. 14 points per game, 41% three-point shooting, all Big East second-team guard. Bring back Terrace Reed. By the end of the year, was one of the best big men in the Big East. 24 points, 16 boards against Providence in a late-season game. That is, I don't want to say that's what he's going to give you every night, but I think it showed what he is capable of as he got more comfortable in this system with this program. And, of course, the big news the last couple days, Alex Karaban returns without even testing the draft waters. Now, he did take a little bit of a step back, but he is also a guy that in a year in which he took a step back, averaged 14 points per game. Three-point shooting needs to be better. Jalen Stewart is back. Jaden Ross is back. But the important part, as far as I am concerned, is that, you added other pieces around those guys as well. One, the big one. This is the big one. Silas Demery Jr., guard, Georgia. We talked about it during the season. We talked about it after the season when UConn went 0-3 in Maui. I said they need that lead guard that makes things easier for everybody else. They do not have that guy in their current system. They needed that guy. They get it with Silas Demery, 13 points per game, 3 assists per game, 36% three-point shooting at Georgia. You add him, Braylon Mullins is going to be a one and done, McDonald's All-American guard. I found it interesting during the recruitment. Dan Hurley was very vocal about he believes Braylon Mullins is a one and done. Well, guess what that means? He's going to play early, and Dan Hurley expects him to contribute early. You're going to add a couple other pieces as well. Thought it was interesting. Tom Moore, the longtime assistant, he was there under Jim Calhoun. He went to Quinnipiac. He went to Rhode Island with Dan Hurley. He is now officially UConn's GM. He has transitioned into more of an administrative role, not an on-the-road recruiter. I bring it up. He actually did a press conference here on Sunday where he said, we're still looking for pieces, But right now, it's got to be the right veteran for minimal NIL money. It's got to be a foreign kid. Basically, they're still looking to add practice players and end of the bench guys, but this roster is largely done. I have UConn at number 4. Number 5, and I'm already going long here, so I'll try to start moving things a little bit faster. Houston Cougars. With Houston, it's interesting. I did have them as my preseason number 1 coming out of the Final Four. I think upon further evaluation, I bumped them down just a little bit, but they're still going to be really good. Milos Uzan, who was the starting point guard, one of their best players by the end of the year, he's testing the draft waters, and I think getting him back is key because you do have some other nice pieces, Emmanuel Sharp, JoJo Tugler, but I think the reason I'm a little bit lower on Houston, and by the way, speaks to where Kelvin Sampson has this program that I'm lower on them, and I have them as a preseason top 5 team, is just that they're going to be relying a lot on freshmen next year. And one thing about Kelvin Sampson, not an easy guy to play for. And my assumption is it's going to take some time for those freshmen to adjust. Isaiah Harwell, 5-star McDonald's All-American. Chris Sinak Jr., 5-star McDonald's All-American. Kingston Flemings, 4-star, really good guard. 5-star in some services. I just think it's going to take them a little while longer. They also had Pop Isaacs from Creighton, but he's coming off knee surgery. I have Houston at number 5. If Milos Uzan comes back, I'm willing to consider moving them up, especially depending on what happens with Lendenberg and a few others, but Houston at number 5. Number 6, let's stay in the Big 12. Torres is Cougar crazy, so let's go from one smoking Cougar to another. That's the BYU Cougars, baby. Listen, we've talked about them so much. We talked about them on the last show with AJ DeBonsa on campus. We talked about them the show before with Richie Saunders coming back. I don't know that I need to spend a ton of time here. But AJ DeBonsa, he's the real deal. Like, there are 5-star kids that we overrate and we overtalk about and they don't have impact. AJ DeBonsa is not going to be that kid. I'm not predicting like national player of the year, but I did say this on the last show. I think him and Richie Saunders, you can make a legitimate argument for both of them as preseason first-team All-Americans. Richie Saunders averaged about 16.5 points per game, 43% three-point shooting last year. And what's interesting about him, played his best basketball late. I think the stat we pulled up was, like 6 of his last 9 games, he went for over 20 points. Now you have AJ DeBonsa. Rob Wright comes over from Baylor, 11 points, 4.5 assists as a freshman. They've added some nice pieces around them. And Keba Keita, the Incredible Hulk, is down low. I think they're like UConn. 1, they were going to be defined by retention, but 2, I still think if the right piece came along, they might add 1 or 2 more. I think they're pretty much probably big game hunting. They're done big game hunting. BYU with DeBonsa Saunders, they're going to be awesome. By the way, a couple scheduling notes. 1, we mentioned they're opening the season in Vegas against Nova. Found out after the fact on Friday that Arizona and Florida will be the game before them in that game in Vegas on opening night. Torres might have to go out there because that's a heck of a doubleheader. Also, UConn officially announced that they are in the Jimmy V Classic. BYU is also set to go there, so there's a chance we could see a UConn versus BYU game in the Jimmy V Classic. It's going to be a fun season for BYU. Really excited. Number 7, first SEC team. Let's get controversial, baby. But I said 2 weeks ago when John Calipari put out that video that DJ Wagner, that Trevin Brazil, that Billy Carter. Who is Billy Carter? That sounds like a familiar name. Billy Richmond is coming back, and I was going to add Carter Knox is testing the waters. But when he put that video out, I said this is the best team on paper in the SEC going into 2025, 2026. First of all, it is about retention. Second of all, I'll say this, because when I said this, everyone got all mad. Torres, you're pulling stuff out of your you-know-what. Because what did I say? I said 3 of their most important players are coming back. And people said, they're not important. They don't matter. Adu Theoro, Boogie Flan. And I'm like, look, go back and look at the games where Arkansas was actually playing well late. Who are the best players on the floor? Regular season finale, had to beat Mississippi State. DJ Wagner comes through 24 points. Opening round, NCAA tournament. Who is bullying Hunter Dickinson? Trevin Brazil, double-double. How about the second round? You beat St. John's. Who's your leading scorer? Billy Richmond. Texas Tech, Sweet 16. Who's your leading scorer? It's Carter Knox. So don't tell me that the guys coming back aren't awesome. I would add this, Darius Acuff. We're going to talk about him later in the show. I think he might be the most underrated freshman coming into college basketball next year, and that's a dude that is a top 10, almost consensus recruit. Shout out on 3, who has him ranked like 24th or something like that. But that's another conversation for another day. Anyway, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas, both really good. And then listen, I liked the additions in the portal of Nick Pringle and Malik Ewan. Neither of them is going to be a star, but remember, when John Calipari gets a 5-star, when he gets an elite player, everybody's always just trying to put together a bunch of talent. When he brings in a role player, everybody says, oh, that guy stinks. It's like, no. They needed role players. They get role players. Arkansas, I believe, on paper, has the best roster in the SEC. I have them at number 7. By the way, this itch on my nose is driving me crazy. Let's keep it going. Number 8. And this is not intentional. It's just the way my rankings fall. Number 8, second best SEC team on paper, in my opinion. It's the Kentucky Wildcats. And listen, we've talked a lot about Kentucky as well. We talked about the Mark Pope interview with John Rothstein last week, so I'll be quick on this one. But what's obvious to me, Mark Pope at this time last year prioritized skill over athleticism. God, this itch is killing me. Give me a second here. I don't know what's going on here. I swear I wasn't up to no good this weekend. I just got a crazy itch on my nose. Anyway, Mark Pope, last offseason, skill. Kobe Brea, Andrew Carr, whoever, Lamont Butler, whatever. This year, it is very obvious to me that he is prioritizing athleticism, and he's just saying, I'm going to give up a little bit of skill. I need dudes that can just go make plays when all else goes wrong, okay? Jalen Lowe, really good point guard. Denzel Aberdeen, I think listen, we've seen the splits of Denzel Aberdeen as a starter this year at Florida. I think he's going to be really good. 6'5", 6'6", defends, can put the ball in the basket. And then, of course, down low, Jaden Quaintance, who, oh, by the way, Kentucky fans, we may be having on the show later this week. Brandon Garrison down low. I think Quaintance might be, quite literally, he could be the best player in the SEC next year if he comes back healthy, ready to go. And then on the wings, Mo Diabate is a beast. And Otega Owe, I mean, he is kind of an X factor. I am factoring him in. But Kentucky, to me, it's going to be a better roster top to bottom. And this, remember, was probably pretty much a top 5 team when they were fully healthy last year. Beat Florida, beat Duke, beat Gonzaga, on and on. Really like this Kentucky team at number 8. Number 9, I swear again, I'm not doing it. But it is a team that Kentucky will face in the out-of-conference because it's a team that Kentucky always faces in the out-of-conference. It's Pat Kelsey's Louisville Cardinals. Okay, listen, I love what Pat Kelsey did. I give him credit. He got a lot of his work done early. Basically, he's like, I got this money, and I'm trying to get kids on campus and committed, boom, 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 without letting them leave. Ryan Conwell is the name to know there. 16 points per game at Xavier, 41% three-point shooter. I think he's going to be an all-ACC type guy. On top of it, you also have, who else do you have? You have Isaac McNeely, statistically one of, if not the best three-point shooters in college basketball. You have the Adrian Woolley kid. Dominant freshman season in Conference USA. I think he is a kid who transfers up. One day will play in the NBA, but he's going to be really good for Louisville. And then they did a good job retaining players off last year's roster as well. Javon Hadley gets the extra year because he's a JUCO kid. You have Kayshawn Pryor gets the extra year because of an injury. And oh, by the way, you get some nice pieces around them as well. Mikel Brown Jr., highest ranked recruit, I believe, since Samardo Samuels. What a blast from the past that is. Also, the German kid, I apologize, I don't know his name, but he is really good as well. Louisville, to me, on paper, I think they're actually the best team in the ACC. I had Duke early, but they lose Tyrese Proctor, whatever. I have Louisville at number 9. Number 10, last team in the top 10. Arizona Wildcats, okay? And so Arizona is interesting. We talked about them very briefly a few days ago. Because, listen, I'm not here to criticize other media outlets, but another media outlet basically said that they didn't do well enough in the portal. And it's like, yeah, they haven't really tried in the portal because they have 4 key guys coming back off a Sweet 16 team, plus 2 McDonald's All-Americans that just signed. Koa Pete's coming in. Braden Burries is coming in. Jaden Bradley, in my opinion, might be the best point guard in the Big 12. But I think the big decision for Arizona, what happens with Carter Bryant. I think if Carter Bryant comes back and he is shooting up draft boards, just like we told you he would, if Carter Bryant comes back, I think Arizona actually has an argument for preseason number 1 because he's going to be a lottery pick whenever he declares, whenever he officially goes through the draft process. Koa Pete's going to be a first-round pick. Braden Burries is really good. Jaden Bradley is awesome. Should mention, by the way, I like the combination of Krivas and Toby Owaka down low. So I have Arizona at number 10 without Carter Bryant. If he comes back, I think they're probably a top 3 team pretty easily. Really quickly, I'm not going to go through every single team in depth, 11 through 25. By the way, you can always find these rankings at aarontorresonline.com, aarontorresonline.com. Number 11, Duke Blue Devils. Listen, they were awesome this year. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. They did lose a lot. I thought maybe a Tyrese Proctor comes back, gives you a little bit of continuity. Good news with Duke is that they have, in fact, added Cedric Coward over the last couple of days. I think he is going to be a really good player, assuming he comes back and plays college basketball. Cam Boozer, I think, is going to be your preseason ACC Player of the Year. I just think when you look at Duke, what you really have to do is, outside of Cam Boozer, basically make assumptions on everyone, right? Like with UConn, with BYU, with even Arkansas, even let me put it this way, even like Kentucky. They got a lot of guys who haven't done it at Kentucky, but Jaden Quayens has produced at the big power conference level. Denzel Aberdeen, Mo Diabate have produced at the power conference level. With Duke, you're betting on a bunch of guys to play, to take a big step in that program. Isaiah Evans, Caleb Foster, etc. I do think Caden Boozer is probably a little bit underrated, but I have Duke at number 11. Texas Tech at number 12. I am consensusly lower on Texas Tech. I'll be real. I don't understand the argument for putting them higher. I understand they're bringing back Jacob Toppin, Big 12 Player of the Year. They don't have a point guard right now. Elijah Hawkins was the head of the snake. They have added some nice pieces, most notably LaJawn Watts out of Washington State. I just don't know that they have a real point guard right now. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I need to look into it more. Maybe I need to do I think they're going to struggle at the point guard spot. And by the way, having them at number 12 doesn't mean that they're a terrible team. It's just I see people that have them in the top 3, top 5. I just don't see it. So I have Texas Tech at number 12. Number 13, UCLA. That roster has actually basically been set since probably the first week of April. Donovan Dent, the big name there. They announced the transfer class very early. Mick Cronin's probably on a golf course somewhere, not doing very much. They have been set there at number 13. 14 is Creighton. Not much to add there. 2 best players from Iowa. Remember, Iowa fired Fran McCaffrey. 2 best players, Josh Dix, Owen Freeman, both go there. Interesting note on Creighton, of course. Greg McDermott, this might be his last year. They have already announced the successor, the coach in waiting, Alan Huss. So we'll see what happens there. Creighton at number 14. Number 15, Iowa State. Justin Jefferson is the big name back there. Taman Lipsey as well. They've added a couple nice pieces in the portal, most notably Blake Buchanan. They're still going to be really good. 16 is Auburn. We assume Tahad Pettiford is coming back. Keyshawn Hall is the big name there. Keyshawn Murphy from Mississippi State is another name that I really like. By the way, I'm looking at my list on my updated top 25. I somehow deleted Keyshawn Murphy, so I don't know why he's not there. Kevin Overton from Texas Tech is a nice little player as well. And Elijah Freeman, former D2 player, a lot of people love. Illinois. Of every team that wasn't in it at all last time, Illinois makes the biggest leap there at number 17. Andrei Stojakovic, the Avicic brothers, we've talked about them. And then the one that's interesting to me, Mihailo, we talked about him the other day, Petrovic, 22-year-old point guard out of Europe. People say he's one of the best Europeans not in the NBA. 18, Bama, that roster's largely been set. They're clearly looking for another player. They missed on Cedric Coward. Number 19, Kansas, they need some dudes outside of Darren Peterson. We'll see. Darian Williams, I think, would be a name there if he withdraws from the draft. Number 20, Tennessee. I like the roster. I don't love it. Nate Ament is the big addition there. I don't know that he's ready to come in and dominate college basketball the way that a Cam Boozer is, etc. 21, Sean Miller's Texas Longhorns. I think part of this, we have to give credit to Rodney Terry. Left the cupboard full. Jordan Pope is back. Tremont Mark is back. I think both those teams are going to be very good. Both those guys are going to be very good. 22, North Carolina. Listen, North Carolina fans get mad at me. I think I'm being kind of nice about putting North Carolina in at 22. They've lost everybody right now except for Seth Trimble. Henry Visar comes in. He's a nice player. Jaron Stevens is a nice player. Kyan Evans, a really good guard from Colorado State. I still think they need like one more guy to be a real player. And this is an offseason, obviously, where Hubert Davis has to get things going. 23, Gonzaga. 24, Florida. Now, Florida is very clearly in the market for at least one more guard. Desmond Claude from USC is in the mix there. Also, Boogie Flad. We'll talk about him in a minute. And then I'll give credit where it's due. Miami. Jay Lucas comes in. This is who he has added. He has added Trey Donaldson, point guard, Michigan, formerly of Auburn. He has added Malik Renew, double-digit scorer 2 years in a row at Indiana. Shelton Henderson, the former five-star, was committed to Duke. Dante Allen, four-star, committed to Villanova. All these guys have flipped. I think Miami at number 25, I like them. Michigan State 26, San Diego State 27, Iowa 28, St. Mary's 29, USC, the Trojans, who of course just added Chad Baker-Mazara last week, come in at number 30.